Hey, I'm Grant and welcome to the State of the Channel for October 15th. So what I want to talk about is just progress on all the goals that I set out last week. So what I want to talk about first is streaming. So last week I sat down and I fixed some of my big streaming issues. So one of the big things that I had an issue with was it was very hard to capture game chat on Xbox. So anytime I was actually talking to other players, like through Xbox Live service, so either in party chat or in game chat, I couldn't really capture that because essentially my Elgato only captures stuff going through that HDMI cord. And it doesn't go through that, it goes through the headset. And then up until now, there wasn't an easy way around that. Usually what you had to do is you had to get an Elgato chat link cable, which essentially plugs in and lets you basically split it and then feed it back into the Elgato. And that didn't quite work for my setup because I didn't want to have too many mics. Like that was a big issue where I didn't want to have the big stand-up mic and then have my headset and then maybe some other mic just to like get it all to like figure out. So instead, what I was able to do is I have a new setup now, thanks to Xbox for pushing out some new features where I now have the ability on my Xbox to turn on the ability, I keep saying that, to let sound or voice chat go through both the headset and the game audio. And it's something I can't mix very well, but I think I hit a good point where you can hear both. So now it's recorded by the Elgato because it's going through the headset. And because it's going through the headset, now I don't have to wear two sets of headphones. I just wear my one single set of wireless ones. And then for the mic problem, what I was actually really lucky that worked out is, so I have an Xbox Elite controller, which is essentially like the premium controller and totally worth it in my eyes. And one of the things it came with is there is a 3.5 millimeter headset jack. I don't recall like the exact definition for it, but essentially it's the same thing that's on my phone. It takes the 3-barred 3.5 millimeter, whatever it is. And what that is it's a microphone and a headphone jack. So that means it works with this mic. And that's pretty big. So now it's no longer this really annoying setup to get the game chat, or I don't have to like say, hey man, everyone, I really want to raid with you, but there's a requirement that you have to get on Skype so I can record you. Like that would never work. Now it's actually pretty simple where I just wear my headset. This is the game audio. So anytime you see me doing this in a gameplay video, this is actually going to the Xbox party. And then my stand-up mic is the one that's actually being recorded on the game chat. So this means that in theory, and I haven't done too many tests, I can record both the people talking, myself, and the game audio. Before, I always had to have some disconnect where like, here's me, but they can't talk, but you have game audio. Okay, we have no game audio, so you don't hear any game sounds at all, and then it's just me and the people. Or some combination of that. And what the point of this was the streams I was doing earlier in the week where I'm just gonna try and stream things I wanna do anyway. So I Sherpa'd a raid in Destiny, or at least attempted to, which is, raids in Destiny are these big 6-man experiences with all these like tiny little mechanics. So you have to like say, hold something and hand it off players at very specific times or do tasks kind of in tandem, so it requires a lot of communication. And a Sherpa is someone who like goes through and teaches the people this. And the reason I did that is because I want to show off that I can just stream whenever. Like I didn't have to like get these people to be like in on it in order to stream. I can just pull them in. As long as you're in the party, you're being recorded, we can hear you. And just kind of seeing how that feels. I did another stream that was just the Destiny Reset stream where I was kind of working stuff out. I still need to fix some things, like I need to make, I think, some kind of checklist to make sure I do everything on the stream. Like I think in the Sherpa stream, I think my microphone was off the whole time. Like they could hear me on the game chat and I was talking, but my actual like mic going to the Elgato, going into the stuff I was recording, I think that was off. And I should clarify that you think like, oh, that's a dumb error. Like sure, you notice that. The reason I don't is the way the microphones work, like this over there, like if you can see it, that's actually not powered officially right now. It's just, sometimes it has enough USB power that it can just light up anyway. Like it doesn't run off USB, but the lights do. So it looks like it's on, even though I didn't actually hit the switch. So it's on, it's flashing, it's just not recording. And I didn't find that out until I think 4 hours in or even the next day, I think, when I was trying to record some test audio for a little D&D thing I'm doing. And I realized, oh, my microphone's not working because it's not on. Well, I don't think I would have turned it off after the stream, so maybe that's why no one was trying to talk to me the whole time, because I was just apparently dead silent. So in my eyes, that's a big step forward, but a couple issues to sort out. I still don't know where streaming will fit in for me, and that's one thing I kind of want a little bit of feedback on. In the past, the thing that has been most successful for me to stream is just these one-off little challenges. In my mind, I think of this series called One Run. It was supposed to be a complement to the Master Run series I did in Dead Rising. It was supposed to be something like, I'm gonna take a game, say Dead Rising, and I'm gonna give myself some kind of arbitrary goal or arbitrary restriction and then still try to beat the game with that. So in Dead Rising 1, it was beat the entire game with this definition, do all the story missions, and kill all the psychopaths, but don't kill any zombies. You need to have 0 killed at the end of the game. And you know what? That was really fun. And that is interesting to watch. It's the same reason I think people like watching speedruns is it's like, hey, here's content I know, here's content I like, but this extra spin lets you see it in a new light. So I'd like to do that, but then there's several challenges with that series. Like a big one is you don't know if it will work until you try it. Like I could have gotten halfway, like say 3 to 4 hours into that Dead Rising series, and then I realized, oh yeah, that's right, there's a required zombie kill. That's actually basically what literally happened, because if you're familiar with Dead Rising 1, there's a story mission where you meet Isabella, like the female lead of the game, and you're waiting for her in a shop, and she comes in being attacked by a zombie, and that zombie needs to die to progress the game. So I thought, man, I've sunk so many hours into this, and now it's like, yeah, I could make the one exception, but there's a big difference between saying I killed 0 zombies and I killed 1 zombie, because those are not on the same level at all. And luckily in that there's a little bit of an exploit where you can get a survivor, like an NPC, to get the kill for you, and that way you'll still have 0 on the counter. But that would have been really terrible if I sunk in all that time to make this little series and then there was nothing for it. Now for the stream, this is a good option because if it's a stream, it's live, it's not that big of a deal if it isn't as good. Like if I was going to go make and edit a whole series, I would have to make sure I did the entire thing before I put it out, because I don't want to have to stop halfway through. So let me know if that's interesting to you. The other choice is just kind of go out and do stuff that's a little bit more promotion-y. So stuff like Sherping raids in Destiny, that's something where I wouldn't normally do because it's a very long experience. Like you're probably looking at, if I'm doing it solo, I'm not bringing in players that already know what they're doing, you're probably looking minimum 2 to 4 hours, if not more. So that's something that's I could do a lot in that time. Like I'm gonna talk next about starting up the Resident Evil Let's Play. I could record 4 sessions, I think, worth of that show if I didn't do the Sherpa. But on the other hand, that's a very good promotional material. Like that's something that says, hey, I Sherpa every Tuesday, let's say, from 6 p.m. to midnight. So that opens up on possibility where 1, I can do consistent streams, but 2, you can start to create a connection and a community because people want to come to you, be like, hey, I'm a dad, I don't have time, I just want to schedule a raid and know I'm going to finish it. That's good. And then you have more of a connection with people. So that's something where I'm torn, oh, the One Run stuff I think is very good, but it's very variable. Whereas the Destiny raids, that's something that I can start instantly. I could go right now and probably have it going in 10 minutes, and that would be good content. But it's not something I think is as relatable to a lot of people. Whereas the spin-off stuff, that's just interesting. And as long as I can keep coming up with ideas, that's a pretty good idea. So I'm just not sure where that fits in. And then, moreover, the biggest thing I have with streaming is just that I don't know when I would do it. There's a lot of times I would like to stream, but when I had the most growth in the past was when, like I said, doing those little one-off stuff, but also it was the fact that I could stream every Friday at 6 to midnight. That consistency, I think, was a big deal. And right now, I don't know if I can commit to that or not. I won't be able to commit to it in a good way. Yeah, I could commit to doing, say, every 3 weeks on Tuesday, and the next is every 3 weeks on Thursday, and this really consistent schedule, but one that's super convoluted. I don't think that would work either, because if you look at stuff I had the potential to stream, say, Thursday, well, that's good, I have it free now, but what about the podcast, the Digression Bar comes out on Fridays? What if I need to take that day to just finish editing? I just need to, and then all of a sudden I'm not consistent. So these are all the issues I need to work out. I do like streaming, and it's something where it's super snowbally. in my experience streaming, like the hardest part is when you don't have any viewers at all. Like it's actually, I think anyone can really stream once you have people watching, because then it's a conversation, it's just talking. But I know there's times where it's like, oh, I want to stream, but if there's no one in chat, do I just kind of play up to the camera? Do I just talk to myself? How long do I do that? Do I instead kind of like write down topics like that I want to prompt myself on, and then when people start showing up, then I go? It's actually something that sounds super like kind of like I'm faking it, but it's not. But it's a good question. Like if I'm going to stream for 6 hours, do I want to use some of my quote unquote best material right when I start when no one's there? Because it's very easy that honestly, I'm tired. Dude, I gave the whole spiel before. Getting up early, I go for like a whole run. So like by 6 o'clock, I'm already tired. And then to add another 6-hour stream on top of that, like it's definitely a real concern that by the end of that, it's easy to settle in and just forget I'm streaming. Like I'm just playing the game and maybe talking to people on the mic. So I'm gonna wrap that up, but that's essentially my thoughts on streaming. So I had a huge step forward, but there's still some small stuff I gotta figure out before I can say, yeah, I stream every Thursday or every Friday or something, which I'd like to get to, but it's still coming. So the next thing I said is the Resident Evil Let's Play. That's something I think I'm gonna get started soon. This is currently Saturday here in Omaha, and it's all downcast and stuff, so I'm staying in. So I figured I'll start that this weekend because I have tomorrow off, it's Sunday. I feel I can just get a good chunk out and just kind of get a feel for it again. I had filmed like, I want to say like 2 episodes worth, so like 2 hours worth of the game before, but it felt like it was easy if I just restarted and got a good flow going. Because one of the main reasons I wanted to do that with Resident Evil is the Let's Play stuff, like streaming, needs to come very easy because it's kind of a low priority on the channel. You know, it's not something where like the podcast where I will bump everything else and really go head over heels to like make sure it works. It needs to be something where I can consistently put out videos and put them out in a timely manner. Because one of the things I learned from doing the Dead Rising Chop to Drop like Let's Play is if I'm gonna put out 20 episodes and if they only come out once a week, you're easily encroaching on nearly half a year for that series to finish. And that's kind of unrealistic. So either they need to be able to be something I can put out fairly quickly, like let's say either is that 2 episodes every week, or if that's just a ton of time compressed into a single video, like cut an hour down to 15 minutes so that the gameplay moves very fast, or it might just be that I have to make long episodes, like here's an hour-long episode where I cover a lot of stuff so I have a big long leap forward. Those are all like my concerns with that. Like it needs to be something though that can be contained and is quick and is streamlined. So that's what I need to work with that. And I talked before, I think with the Dead Rising Chop to Drop, where what I wanted to do is experiment with like how I film that stuff to see if I can't set it up where, like for example, I used to record Dead Rising Chop to Drop. I would film for an hour and then I would stop and then I would just cut that down as much as I could to about 15 to 20 minutes. And that worked, but then you run into these issues where sometimes you have a really action-packed episode and sometimes you don't. And just doing an arbitrary hour doesn't really guarantee you a good length of episodes. So that's one reason why it was really floaty. So if I could streamline that and say, make a good workflow such that I could just play the game, like if I could sit down and play it for 8 hours and then still use all that footage, that's a lot easier to fit in. Because then I can say on a Saturday, like or Sunday, like tomorrow, I can play from like noon until 8 p.m. Obviously taking some breaks in between and all that. And then with this giant file, then I just have to slowly kind of chop it up and like separate it out. That is so much more efficient from my end than having to do this big thing of sitting down, producing an hour episode, then editing it, and it just all kind of not being consistent. If I can solve that problem, I would love to put that stuff out because in my eyes, like I don't consider this a Let's Play channel. Like I've said that plenty of times, but it's content that I think is very easy to put out with other stuff. Like I don't have to necessarily have a face cam. I can cram it in at different points because it's only me. Like with the podcast, I have to like, we're worried about like the weather, the environment, we're worried about getting everyone in here, like so many factors. Well, with that, it's just like, does my Xbox work? Does my PC work? Go. So I would like to get that going, and I think that's going to be filming tomorrow. Next series is the OSRS stuff. It's another thing where I like to stream I have good ideas, but I just don't know if I can kind of commit to specific timelines. And that's my concern is, I said before that I think that thing has very good ability to grow the channel. And I don't think I'm gonna make it a very RuneScape like centric channel, but just the fact that if this little series I can do is good and draws people in, that's just more eyes on the rest of the stuff I put out, and then that can hopefully grow. So it's right now what I'd like is they don't take particularly long to produce. Like that's a series where it's less about making it and more about the ideas, where it's like the antithesis of a Let's Play where the idea is just the game. Like it's very easy to find more and more games. It's actually the execution that matters. Well, with the OSR stuff, it's the idea. It's like, what's the conversation topic? What's the OSR, like the OSR is blind idea? That's what matters. The actual execution is pretty easy. So I'm just concerned then if I commit to say every week, like yeah, like the timelines I can put it out, like it doesn't take that long to make, but by month 2, are these gonna be like really like scraping at the bottom of the barrel and then the quality's dropping off? Or do I dare go like less? Like again, like I don't wanna commit for every 3 weeks and then it's like, well, I like your stuff, I'll just find you again when it comes out. I'm not gonna stick around. Like that doesn't help the channel either. So either way though, I have a couple ones I'm gonna put out just to make them and see just different things, and we'll see how that goes. On all of these, the big thing I'm tackling right now with my editing skills, I don't know, production, is how I wanna handle end cards and just ending the video, because that enables a lot of different things. So one, it's promoting other videos across the channel. So stuff like if you watch one OSR is Blind series and you liked it, I wanna make sure there's a link in front of you to see more, as well as suggest ideas on my website. But then you also need one that has the ability to like basically end the episode very promptly. So stuff like the podcast, it needs to be a nice conclusion. It needs to bookmark it. It can't just be like, oh, it's sometimes there, it's sometimes not. It needs to be there every time. It needs to be consistent. And 3, ideally it needs to be very smooth in how it begins and how it ends, because I want to make sure I retain the ability that if you are watching the podcast or OSR is Blind, I want you to be able to like just let it play, let it just go through the playlist. Like that's a very big deal on YouTube to have like that kind of like content, like just keep the content coming. And ways you don't do that is a hard cut into say a really loud song that just draws you out of it, and then silence and a black screen, and then you're waiting for the next one to roll. That's not very good. But if I can say have a consistent image that comes up, but say my conversation keeps going, and then I cut it very promptly and very elegantly, such that if you're watching the On the Rune series, the video just like starts and it's like, oh yeah, I'll keep listening. Like that's a very big deal, and it's not something that's very easy to test. Like one of the main reasons I don't have a very consistent feel with that is because one, technically I only get to test it every time I make a video. Whereas with an edit, like say a podcast edit, I keep doing that over and over every time I make a cut in the podcast. And I watch a podcast like 8 times before I release it, which takes a long time. But with these end screens, it's not until I actually put out a video and see it on YouTube and get a feel for it that I actually know if it worked and did the things I wanted or not. Also, honestly, there is a big point where like I watched that podcast 8 times. So by the time I get to the end of it and finally I'm like, now I can sit down and do this end screen, now I don't have as much energy as I did before, because I kind of spent all that willpower on making the video like before the end screen. So it's something that's I've been kind of evolving. You can see it right now on the endings of the podcasts. That's the first one that has kind of an idea where I went through and like, these are the spaces for the end cards. It's gonna be a video that plays on the right side that keeps like, there it's just like a little post video, and I'll usually try to link that to an actual extra video to the podcast. Or for like the On the Rune series, it's gonna be something very similar where it's gonna fade to essentially to an image, or I'm just gonna shrink the current video, which I think is actually a better idea. I just had that right now. And then I can pop up the links, but the video is still going. It doesn't feel like it's a hard cut. Like if you go watch some like my old Let's Plays, or like mid-range old, not because I wasn't able to do this in the very early ones, I would just transition off. Am I talking? I'd like downscale my volume and I'd upscale some music, because I would be doing batch recordings there. So I needed some way where I could like just split up a 3-hour long recording into 1-hour episodes. And, and I might be just talking the whole time. So I needed that. And it wasn't very elegant, but I need to fix that. So that's the big long talk. Otherwise, for the website, I don't know if I talked about this before, but I have web forms up now on the site, so you can suggest ideas for the OSR is Blind series, as well as for the questions on the podcast, where we read them off and we'll like say like, oh, this is our answer, this is my answer, this is specifically directed at this guy. Fun stuff. And then I took some time to go through and just kind of make sure I was doing proper branding with those and just a whole bunch of other links. So I went through and just on all my main videos that I consider to be like important features of the channel. So like Dead Rising 1 Master Run, Dead Rising Choppity Drop, the podcast, State of the Channel. I tried to sit down and make templates and add descriptions to all these videos that had like, here's how you contact me, here's how you submit ideas to the podcast, here's how you like email me, here's when I'm gonna put these out, here's what this series mean, and here's like a link to a playlist. That's like a biggest pet peeve is when I go to a playlist on YouTube or I just in a video and I can never find the playlist it's in. Which as a YouTube creator, let me tell you, the playlist tools on YouTube are not particularly good unless you want to either completely automate it or do it manually every time. But the catch is, I put in a video and schedule for release on Friday, but put it in the playlist, it puts it in the playlist like right now. So everyone would see like this locked video, so you can't do that either. So it's just kind of this annoying thing where you always forget or it ends up in the playlist late, and I would much rather just fix that for the viewer or myself by just putting a link in the description that says, this is the playlist, here's your link. You will always know that this is here on my videos. So that was what I've been doing this week and what I'm doing next week. This has been a pretty long State of the Channel, but it's been kind of fun. Just one of the big things I like doing the State of the Channel is it invigorates me. Like I would think normally that by the time I get to doing the State of the Channel, like on the end of a Sunday or something, I wouldn't want to keep doing more YouTube because I'm burnt out, but actually it invigorates me. It makes me rolling and gets me working on stuff. So that's why I kind of moved to doing it on Saturday, just because now it's like, yeah, let's get some stuff done before I have to go be a bum again. So anyway, thanks for watching. As always, you can contact me over on Twitter. It's at taken4grantd. Otherwise, you can email me at grant@taken4grantd.com, and I'll see you guys again next week.